Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the July 18th board meeting. If I could ask you to please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. Notices announcing the date, time, and place for this meeting were sent to all concerned individuals, associations, and sent to Union County Local Source in accordance with Chapter 231 of Public Law 1975. For the roll, Ms. Stanton? Here. Dr. Porak? Here. Ms. Miller? Here. Ms. Justice? Here. Ms. Cohn? Here. Vice President Cho? Here. President Colon? Here. You have a quorum.
Okay. We're going to jump right into presentations, yes?
Yes, we are. We're going to begin with student outcomes.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. All right, good evening. Tonight, Allison Grill, college counselor, and myself are here to present to you and celebrate our class of 2022 and where they're going once they leave us from Summit High School. This class, they started high school with their normal year, and then the meat of their high school experience really got interrupted. So it was really nice to celebrate them in somewhat of a traditional way this year. And we're excited to present the data about the class to you this evening. So tonight we're going to discuss different statistics in regards to what avenues they're pursuing, where they're applying, where they're actually going, different types of plans beyond the traditional 2 or 4 year college, different statistics broken down by different demographic data, as well as a list of matriculations as to where all of our students are attending next year. So this slide represents the full breakdown of the graduating class of 2022, which represents 288 students. Of those, a little over 85% will be attending a traditional 4-year college, and a little over 6% will be attending a 2-year college. This is relatively on par, consistent with our data year over year, and specifically with last year's data. Put that together, and the overall rate is over 91% who are attending higher education right after graduation. If we look to factor in the students who are pursuing postgraduate programs, that percentage actually jumps up to over 93%, and we'll talk a little bit more about those students in this presentation. Of those that are pursuing employment immediately after graduation, the different industries include food services and retail. The students going into post-grad year, which are structured programs and college prep programs for students who are looking to increase their recruitment opportunities for different athletic events. We have 2 students attending the military and the Army and Marine Corps, different career education opportunities, specifically UTI for automotive, Artistic Academy for cosmetology, and special education work programs. We have 1 student attending a gap year, and there are still a handful of students who are undecided about their plans. Breaking down the data for those that are pursuing higher education directly out of high school, the majority of our students are looking to pursue public and private schools outside of New Jersey. Many of our students have opportunities to travel, and they look to continue that and pursue opportunities for higher education outside of the state. There's also a lot of really great schools within a short drive, but still outside of New Jersey, that many of our students look to access. One of the numbers that might stand out here is the gender balance for this graduating class. We do have more females attending 4-year colleges. In this graduating class, there were 153 females versus 138 males. When we don't rank, but when we do look at the students in that top percentile, it is a lot of females over males. So we think that also kind of explains some of these numbers. So proud of that. 3 female students are also studying abroad, 1 at IE University in Madrid, 1 at Bocconi University in Italy, and 1 at Palamida International Institute of Design and Marketing in Florence. Who wouldn't want to be in one of those 3 locations? The international schools really tend to have strong professional and specialized programs, and these students knew that they wanted to study international business and fashion, and these schools provided them really great opportunities to do so. This slide represents application summary broken down by school. So you can see the first column represents, on the left, schools that received 30 or more applications from our students. To the right, it's 20 or more. The second column is the number of applications they received from this class, and then the change from the previous year is that third column. Our graduates submitted over 230 applications. This was up, 2,036 applications, sorry. Up over 150 from last year. That averages out to about a little over 7 applications for students, which is also up a little slightly from last year. We usually average about 6 per student. As you can see, Maryland had a significant increase, and Rutgers did have a significant decrease. However, Rutgers went test optional last year, so we think that the number of applicants last year was pretty inflated in that there were a lot of unknowns. They added test optional. A lot of students put that on their list with the opportunity to potentially stay closer to home with a lot of things kind of up in the air still. So we did see a little bit of a dip after that inflated number last year. We saw a big spike in Pittsburgh and Indiana. Those schools have rolling admissions, which offer students a chance to submit an application relatively early and get a decision back relatively early. A lot of students like the opportunity to have maybe a positive outcome under their belt early before they get their other decisions, and that's what we tend to see in those schools. We've had a few schools kind of bounce on and off the list. Fordham is one of those. Ohio State has made its way back onto our list. Some of the things that influence those are just shifts in trends. A school like Ohio State, they don't require an essay. They have the big sports that our students are looking for. They have the campus life that they're also looking for. So we kind of tend to see that when a school is jumping on and off. A few that got knocked off the list are BU, Syracuse, and Tulane. They're getting more and more competitive and harder to get into. They're getting more expensive, and they're requiring more essays. So that's a trifecta that our students are not looking for. TCNJ has also dropped over the last couple of years. What feedback we've gotten anecdotally is that students are really looking for more of that college town, bigger sports scene, and it's just they're not finding it necessarily there. We continue to see a trend of students applying to more public schools year over year. They really love the energy, the school spirit, the sports. They're often more affordable, provide more resources and opportunities, and that's what our students are looking for. So when we look at not only where they apply, but where they're going, these are where we're sending the most number of students in any given location. So in addition to those on the chart, I don't know if you can read at the bottom, but there are other schools that are receiving at least 4 matriculations: Clemson, Elon, Rutgers, Newark, Michigan, Wisconsin are some of those there. We mentioned that beyond just your traditional 2- and 4-year college experience, our students are pursuing other opportunities. We have a male and a female each attending a service academy, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point and the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis. We mentioned our students who are pursuing international schools and those in career education in the areas of cosmetology and automotive service industries. We also have the students attending the different prep schools for their athletic recruitment and gap year opportunities as well. So our students are looking to find the right fit for themselves, even if that's not your traditional 2- or 4-year outcome. Breaking down the outcome data by ethnicity, so you can see all of this data is also self-reported when students register in the district for Genesis. So we pull that data from there and from Naviance to produce these numbers. Some of the takeaways worth highlighting are that 92% of those who identify as African American are pursuing post-secondary education. 75% of our Hispanic students are pursuing post-secondary education, and 95% of those who identify as multiracial are pursuing post-secondary education. Yeah.
Hi everyone, Allison Grill, college counselor here at the high school. I have the data-heavy, geeky portion of the presentation, so just bear with me. Early decision is a metric that we do look at every year. That is a binding commitment a student will make with a college that is their first choice institution. Should they be accepted, they have to attend and withdraw all other applications. This is very attractive to colleges because their bottom line is to fill seats in a class. So if they can get a 1-for-1, it's a win for both parties. We have 95 students from this class submitted ED applications, with 14 of those apps being also an ED2 round. Some colleges offer a first round and then a second round, again to maximize bringing in students to their campus. 8 students from our class exercised both ED1 and then shot their shot with ED2 as well, and they benefited from that, from a lot of those students. Of the whole cohort applying to college, 35% applied early decision, which is on par with other years, about a third. We go from like 33 to 36 kind of every year, 37 one year. This is pretty healthy though. Our students are very thoughtful in how they apply. Many, as you saw, many out-of-state public schools don't have early decision, and so that's where a lot of our students are applying, so that does impact the ED numbers a little bit. We always counsel ED as a potential benefit. Of course, statistically, there are, at many schools, the ED rate can be 10 to 20% higher than the regular decision admit rate. At some schools, it's triple. And so, you shouldn't be using it as a pure strategy. There really needs to be the right fit academically, socially, and most importantly, financially, because if you're committing to an institution, you don't have a chance to compare aid packages with other schools. And the only way to get out of an ED agreement, which is very uncomfortable and hard to do, is to prove financial hardship. So a lot of schools will do an early read for financial aid as a family is deciding if this is the right fit for them. So it definitely is a very contextual decision and not one that should be taken lightly. Plus, kids kind of like to have the option, and sometimes they change from September to March of the next year. They become different new people, and so sometimes committing ED puts a little fear in their faces, and some kids are totally okay with it. So it really is, again, that personal family decision. In terms of our acceptance rate through ED, we received 51 ED acceptances, which is about 53.7% admit rate, which is pretty good for our kids. That is definitely something we look to encourage students to apply ED if it makes sense for their families, because it plays an important role in maximizing admissions. It does matter, more or less, at some schools, however. There are, some highly selective schools use ED to fill their institutional needs on their campus. Many schools are bringing in underrepresented students through early decision. That would be students of color, Pell eligible or low income students, first generation rural or urban students. What they do is it's a way to make sure that their classes are shaped with people, that represent the entire population. And by getting to some of those students who may not have access to college support, or who may not have kind of the home structure to help them navigate the college process, they get on their rosters and their roles earlier, and then they're paired with support programs at those colleges to transition them to college. So that's definitely a population that we're seeing receive more increased acceptances through early decision. Athletes are always an important population to early decision schools. The coach wants that kid on the roster, so they want to lock them in. And so there is sometimes a little bit of pressure for athletes to commit to a school early decision, but again, it could be a win-win for that kid to have to apply to 1 or 2 schools and have a slot on that roster. And then legacy applicants will always be, not always, I shouldn't say always, legacy applicants are typically an important population as well, but there's a big conversation in the industry about the role of legacy applications and if that is equitable in terms of admissions factors. People ask, is there a big difference between ED1 and ED2? Not necessarily, not that we know. Colleges don't share that data. They share a lot of granular data, but not that, because that can change year to year. So some schools, in my phone calls or conversations with them, will say, we were conservative in ED1 this year. We wanted to save more seats to see who's coming in ED2 or who's coming in regular. And so that will kind of shift, maybe allow more seats in ED2. But that could be a different, the next year they could take more from ED1 because they saw a really powerful pool and they want to pull more from there. So the ED1, ED2 conversation isn't as meaningful as ED overall. And sometimes, our kids do really well ED2 because sometimes they maybe reach a little bit with ED1. They put themselves out there as, maybe a reachier school in terms of academic profile. Then they want to lock in a more realistic ED2, and then they see that, kind of return on investment there. So the takeaway here is that yes, ED matters, but for your most selective schools, they are using the ED pool to shape their class in certain ways, which may squeeze the traditional applicant from those spots. And so we need to encourage students to, exercise ED where it makes sense, but also have a broader balance list and an open mind beyond early decision. First-generation students. So we like to look at certain populations because we know that just saying the class did this is not as meaningful as who's in our class. First-generation college students are defined as those whose parents have not earned a 4-year degree, either in the U.S. or abroad. And so this is all self-reported data. We don't do background checks on this. So the class has reported that 46 students in the class have self-reported as first generation. We always hover between 16 and 20% of our class as identifying as first generation college students. Of the 46, 37 apply to at least one college, and 36 will be pursuing higher education. That's about 78% of the overall cohort. The overall college going rate is up a few points from 76% last year, but the 4-year rate is up. That is up 6% compared to last year, as more students chose 4-year colleges over 2-year colleges. There is an overlap with some first-generation students and low-income students, and colleges, again, are really putting their money where their mouth is and trying to attract these students. They're having affinity groups for first-gen students. They're making aid packages better. And so I anticipate that that 4-year rate will hover higher than 2 years as long as colleges still keep putting these programs in place for students. It's good to be a first-gen student here in Summit. I will tell you, we have so much, beyond a strong college-going culture. If kids aren't hearing it in their homes, the talk about college and the means to pursue higher education, they're hearing it in school. They're hearing it in the classrooms, maybe amongst their peers. I was a first-gen kid, so I knew I heard it mostly from my peers first. My parents were a cop and a secretary, and so I know that kids are hearing it here in Summit. Beyond their, just the talk of the town, we have huge support in the counseling office. Obviously, my role, just adds to what the college-going culture here does, as well as the community support here. Plus we have 2 bilingual counselors. We have a lot here. In the community, I don't know if everyone knows, we have the PEP program, Destination College at the YMCA. I oversee the CAP program here at the high school with community parent volunteers who work one-on-one with first-gen kids. So, this is, if you're looking for a place to live who's going to support the first-gen kid, this is definitely it. Some of those people will help kids go on college tours, right? They help fill out applications. We sit and do financial aid apps with students and interpret their award letters. So there's definitely a lot of support here, which is reflected in those numbers. Low-income students, again, there's some overlap here. This is also a self-reported number, and this does not capture all of the free and reduced lunch students in our class, unfortunately. This is impacted because in the past few years, since COVID, lunch has been free. And so many families opted to not apply. We earnest encouragement from our counseling department to try and encourage families to still apply because there are other benefits beyond just free lunch. Tuition, application fee waivers, SAT, ACT fee waivers, certain scholarships. And so we are constantly encouraging students to apply, but this number is, I believe, underestimating the number in the class. Usually it's around 15 or 16% that is on the free and reduced lunch list. But that's the group we got, so this is what the numbers look like. They submitted 184 applications and received 124 acceptances. That number is a little bit lower than previous years, but just because the N is lower. There are a lot of kids out of the list, and I know there are some students who should be on free and reduced lunch who are also going to 4-year colleges who wouldn't be captured here, but they're there. 25, it's better to look at, honestly, at the raw numbers. So 25 of the 33 are pursuing post-secondary education, which is about 3/4 of the group. That's also up from last year and a lot higher than national averages. We're always looking to increase the apps and acceptances for this population, but sometimes they can't always choose the 4-year option. A lot of out-of-state schools, either public or private, when those students leave New Jersey, they lose access to grants. And so I always encourage a student to put 1 or 2 Jersey schools on their list. Again, not to squash their dreams or minimize their chances, but because I know at the end when they get their award letters, there may be a school that gaps them $15,000, $20,000 if that school cannot meet their financial need. New Jersey, I'm excited to announce that this year, New Jersey has announced so many significant financial aid programs at almost half the public schools in New Jersey. Rutgers Scarlet Promise, Montclair, the Red Hawk Guarantee. These are programs that cover full cost of tuition for families making less than $65,000 annually. Then there's a graduated scale for those making less than $80,000 annually, and then kind of moving up to $100,000. So as we see, and I know there are some numbers that would have been in the 2-year cohort this year who are now in the 4-year cohort because Montclair, because of Rutgers, because of Kane doing those programs. So that's really powerful. The kids, when they open their award package and they see, what, they cover everything, it's a really good moment for them. And so that contributes to that number. There are highly selective colleges that if a student is strong enough to earn acceptance academically, that they will meet their financial need by that college. And these are the top tier schools. We're always working to find those students, even as early as freshman, sophomore year. We kind of have a list, a radar of those kids. We try and connect them to make sure that they're in certain programs and on our radar. This year, Case Western gave full tuition to a student. Gettysburg College, Drew University gave full packages. And so all the Ivy, every top tier school now is moving to get rid of loans. You'll see a lot of schools are getting rid of loans. They're doing sliding scale tuition up to $150,000. So as schools promote these programs, we're trying to constantly triangulate on students who would be good fits. And again, it has to take into account the fit, right? Sometimes, like Colgate has a great program. Some kids say, it's super isolated, I don't want to go there. And so that's okay, right? It might not be the right one, but let's find another school where your academics match, and also the social and emotional fit has to match too. It's always interesting to look at kind of the class profile trends. There have been a lot of fluctuations in class size in the past 5 years, but it's remained steady the past couple years. GPA has kind of remained steady the past few years. Typically, SAT and ACT scores go up each year because our students are test prepped. With test optional, more students are taking the test who feel prepared, while others are opting to just apply test optionally and not do it. I have no idea what happened with the ACT this year. I have no explanation for that. The only thing I can think of is that we are encouraging more students just to try it, and so they are trying it as part of their package. I did take a peek at 2023 numbers, and they are back up, so it's just a blip of this class. And ACT is a lot more coachable, but free test prep tends to focus more on the SAT, so that might have something to do with it as well. The amount of apps increased this year to over 2,000. Students, even though the class size stayed the same, students may be hearing that it's harder to get into more selective schools. There may be a little over applying, but I will say compared to peer districts and other just anecdotal evidence, our students are applying very thoughtfully. They are not kind of all caught up in the hysteria. A couple of kids apply to 20, which is crazy, but it's fine. We do counsel them that their odds are not better with the more apps you submit, right? It's not that kind of probability system. But I also attribute that to first generation, low income apps. Again, these out-of-state schools and more selective schools giving better aid packages, students feel there's opportunity, and so they are applying. College trends. So college going rates are consistent with previous years as well. We're starting to stabilize after the 2020 bump, where numbers were higher because colleges accepted more students that year because of uncertainty of enrollment. Many students ended up enrolling in four-year colleges at greater rates. Colleges were opening their doors and their wallets a lot more, not knowing what fall enrollment might look like. So that's kind of what you see with that blip there. Again, ED numbers fairly consistent with a third of the class. First gen and free and reduced lunch college going rates were up this year as more chose college over career education and military. And now the numbers are lower compared to pre-COVID, but those numbers are impacted by the smaller sample sizes. It's really a matter of a few kids that changes those percentages a lot. And those kids are pursuing career ed and or military, or a couple kids did a post-grad year. So I'm not concerned about those numbers. They're going to the right places, if that makes sense. And again, as I mentioned with free and reduced lunch, I know there are a lot of kids who are in that group who are not captured in this. Where we send students, this is always fun to see where we send them off too. There's no surprise, obviously the Mid-Atlantic has the greatest diversity of colleges and receives the bulk of our students with about half, but we do have a nice kind of a spread with New England, the Midwest, and the South. Our kids love the South, big rah-rah, better weather, I guess, right, easy to get to. We represent 27 states, including Washington, D.C., and 3 countries, as we heard. Though we export most of our students, 65 are attending college in New Jersey, which is approximately a quarter of the class. The states that receive the next biggest portion of our students are Pennsylvania with 34, New York with 30, again, that little short radius, Indiana with 13, and Ohio with 10. So we like the Midwest, too. Okay, this is the analysis part, right? Trends and policy shifts, why these numbers look like they do, what's happening in the admissions process. So the emphasis on underrepresented groups is kind of at every college level, from least selective to most selective. Colleges are very vocal about prioritizing seats for these populations. Just a few kind of sound bites from emails and webinars and things we receive. Bates College up in Maine, which is a highly selective institution, announced that it will be increasing their enrollment of undocumented, low-income, and Pell-eligible students by 50%. Starting with the class of 2026. So that is going to, again, they're a small school, and that is going to squeeze the seats. They're not increasing class size, right, but they're shifting the demographic. And so that's going to squeeze seats for the majority applicant. Colgate, as I mentioned before, they launched the Colgate Promise. Families making less than $80,000 will be tuition free. Then tuition is adjusted up to those making $150,000, and there are no loans for families making less than $150,000. And then, kind of on par with that, 36% of their incoming class self-report as students of color. Brown University, their ED pool was the self-reported 51% students of color. Their first-gen numbers are 20%, creeping on 20%. Boston University, their incoming class is 23% first generation, which is intentionally up from 15%. They were very vocal about that was who they're looking for. And so again, knowing these numbers and knowing the mission statements of these schools and the admissions offices helps us pair, when we counsel students, pair them with schools that are looking to meet these kinds of students. The wait list, I always get questions about the wait list. This is a college's inability to predict yield from the overabundance of applications they're receiving leads to more students being waitlisted, as colleges count their deposits May 1st and then shape their class with waitlisted applicants. Again, this is, some schools have said to me, we were conservative and regular, with intention to build our class with the wait list. So it protects their kind of admit rate, because with the wait list, they're pretty much getting that kid if they know that they're coming. That kid has a chance to say, I'm coming or not, and that's an admit for them, right? So otherwise they stay on the wait list. So it's a way to also manipulate numbers, but also make sure their classes are shaped a certain way. I mentioned early decision before and the benefits of early decision. Again, ED is viewed differently by many schools. Some schools are filling over half their class for early decision, and some don't believe in it at all. So it's important for students to do their homework on where ED is advantageous. I have a really geeky chart that I can actually add to the presentation if you'd like to see. It's updated every summer with the ED versus RD rates at many colleges and how much of the class they fill. Colgate University had a 20.6% increase in apps this year. 20.6, on top of the 102% increase in apps last year. And so they are using ED significantly. They enrolled over 60% of their class through early decision. And again, when they do that, they're also meeting the money, right? So they're trying to be equitable in taking more students ED, but not saying, okay, then pay for it, right? They are kind of meeting in the middle and saying, we'll take you and we can also support you for the most part. So that's a nice policy to see in certain schools. Tulane took over 66% of their their class through early decision, which is insane. And Miami, University of Miami, Elon, and Tulane do something sneaky to protect their admit rate and their yield rate. They offer a policy. They offer early decision, but they also offer early action, which is a non-committal, early in the fall deadline, which gives students a result in late December. At that point, they're deferring, which means they bump a lot of kids, a lot of admissible students, a lot of academically qualified students. They defer them to regular decision. Then they send them this email that says, hey, if you are really interested in us, we want you to convert your app to ED2. Okay, so they're trying to get students to commit to them. And so that's how they're also building their class and trying to see who's really interested in them while apps are rising. Okay, so there's a little trickery there, but again, if you do your homework, it could be a good policy. Test optional is here to stay for the most part. That's the biggest shift to come out of the out of the pandemic. March 2020, there were about 300 schools on that list. Now, I actually have the original, the paper that was on my desk in March 2020, yellowing and curling at the edges, but it's a relic. There are 1,000 now schools, over 1,000, that are test optional, which means they are not requiring you to submit test scores as part of their admissions process. You can, it is your option. There are over 80 test blind schools. Test blind means if you waste your $13 and send them to the college, they won't even use them. Do not self-report them to us. They don't care. Not use your test scores. They've eliminated test scores as part of their process completely. Most notably, that would be the whole California public school system, UC's, Cal State's, Dickinson College, Hampshire College, and a few others. 55% of our class apply to at least one test optional school, which is on par with kind of what colleges are seeing. National averages, colleges say between 40 and 60% of their applicants apply test optionally, and about half of their admitted students also apply test optionally. So it's working. It is a viable practice for students to exercise if testing is not a strength in their profile. And it doesn't mean it's easier to get in. Basically, it's like a pie. Think of admissions as a pie, and there are all these factors that are pieces of pie in the student's application. If you remove the test score, it's not a void. There's no blank in that student's application. Everything else just becomes bigger to fill in that piece of pie. And so grades become more important. The transcript, the rigor of the curriculum, student engagement through the resume, letters of recommendation, their essays. So it definitely, schools are doing a lot of homework on this to see that it is a viable practice for their admissions process. Many schools are in the middle of their 3- and 5-year pilot programs to monitor student success on the campus. Are there, differences in rates of graduation between students who apply test optionally and those who did not? So far, we're not hearing that happening, but there will be more research coming out in a few years once those studies have ended. Some schools never went test optionally. That would be the public school system in Florida. And then Georgia just came back online requiring them, University of Tennessee, and most notably MIT up in Boston, Cambridge. So MIT, they can do what they want. They kind of set the tone for a lot of things. They're in their own kind of category, but they did a lot of research, right? They're not going to put something out there and not back it up. MIT did a ton of research, and for their students and for who's successful on their campus, they found that it was the combination of rigor in grades and test scores that reliably predicted success on their campus. And again, MIT is a highly mathematical institution, right? And so you do have to perform well on the math section of those tests. That's just kind of, it's not fair to a student who isn't doing well in math to go to MIT, right? So they found for their process, it works for them. Their dean said it helps identifying socioeconomically disadvantaged students who haven't had the opportunity to take an honors or AP calculus, who don't participate in enrichment programs to beef up their math acumen, right? Who don't have enhancements to their application, but yet they may get a 750, 780 on the SAT, and now the MIT looks at them a little bit harder. So for them, it makes sense, but for the other hundreds of schools, they're still rocking test optional. And then demonstrating interest, this is the process by which a student lets a college know that they genuinely like them and that they're applying intentionally. Some schools eat this up. Some schools couldn't care less. If you visited them, if you emailed them, they're not tracking that, right? So there's a lot of wasted energy in the college process when families don't know what does my school care about, right? Some families are planning these elaborate trips just to go to a certain school that doesn't really care if you're on campus or not. So it's important to know what your schools are factoring in the process. And believe me, visiting a college is always the best way to know if it's a good fit for you. So I would never discourage a visit. But sometimes families get so hung up on their schedules, it's time, energy, money. Make sure you're visiting thoughtfully and that you really need to see a school, and even after they get in, right? Find out, does it matter if I visit now or not? The virtual world has changed that significantly, right? There are insane virtual tours that feel like you're on the campus. Students can now show interest and learn more about a college through virtual info sessions, webinars, student panels, student chats. It's actually overwhelming. So you really need to get online and kind of see what's available. Students need to check their emails. Colleges are tracking student interest by checking emails. We also invite over 100 college reps. We invite hundreds, but about 120 or so come here every fall to meet with students. That's a great way to visit a school and meet the person possibly reading your application. That's a great way to do that without visiting a college. And most selective schools are not tracking demonstrated interest. Again, in terms of equity and access, there are kids who just don't know that that matters. And so college does not want to hold that against a student who could be a great fit, who just hasn't emailed them or stopped on campus because they can't get to campus. WashU is probably the latest, most selective college who has eliminated that from the process, so they no longer track demonstrated interest. This is better viewed on your mobile device or on the website later on, but these are all the list of our matriculations, and the asterisk denotes multiple matriculants on there. We have 5 Ivy League matriculations: Cornell, Dartmouth, Princeton, 2 at Penn, University of Chicago, MIT, Williams, 2 at Bowdoin. I could keep going. There's a lot of great schools on this list, Northwestern. So this is kind of fun to look at and see where all our kids are going. And that is it. That's it, just that. Any questions? What's that?
It's cricket.
It's a lot to digest.
Okay.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a second presentation, but I would first comment, thank you very much, Ali and Laura. That was very, very detailed, a lot of information, and a lot to celebrate. And I think that's important considering everything that we've been through. It's another demonstration that as a school district and a community, we're continuously moving forward. We're doing right by our students, and we're seeing their successes as a result of all of our hard work. That dovetails nicely into this presentation that we do annually, which is a discussion of the end-of-year goals, the attainment of our board goals. You probably have heard us speak about the goals numerous times throughout the course of the school year. We have 4 board goals, and we had a very successful year this year in attaining our goals. We have a lot of advancements and movement within the umbrella of all of these topics and areas of need, and we're excited to continue some of this work moving into next year. So I will start by saying thank you to all the administrative team. When it comes to these goals, it's not just me or my central office cabinet members, it's the principals, it's the supervisors, the assistant principals. These are discussions and topics that go on all year round, and it's because of all of the collaborative teamwork and effort and shared vision that we're able to achieve so much over the course of a school year. So goal number 1, we've heard so much discussion and talk about this, and it relates to our multi-year STEAM goal. The technical, literal translation of our goal is to develop the plan to expand learning experiences for all students in the areas of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, to cultivate that interest. We've talked about that a lot. Encourage innovative thought and processes. We've talked about the skills that they're going to need for the future, and prepare for future opportunities in a dynamic global landscape. And our charge this year was to really create a multi-year plan, to do a needs assessment and take a look at what we need to do in additional years coming up to achieve and improve in this area. So to talk about some of, again, we've talked about this a lot of times, what we did, we looked at it through the committee level, at the district committee level, and broke into subcommittees for grade age appropriate design for the future. And we took a look at K-12 programming, district facilities, and staffing. And as you know, we are well on our way for our K-5 elementary STEAM program. We have innovation labs right now as we speak being built at each of our schools. We have designated staff for those STEAM labs next year thanks to the SEF and them assisting us with that. And we are poised right now for our elementary portion of this goal to really thrive and take off next year. With that, you have seen with our bond issuance, our proposal for middle level and high school programming and initiatives underneath our multi-year STEAM. So that's still some information that's pending out there, but we feel like we have a great plan. We've shared it with the board and the community several times, and we've got a lot of support and motivation behind that plan. So a lot of movement on this goal, and we're really proud of the work and the direction it's taking us. With that, I'm going to introduce Dr. Joe Cordero, our new Director of Curriculum Instruction, to help me with this presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Our second goal this year was to enhance student experiences through social and emotional learning programming within all areas of the social and emotional learning competencies, with an emphasis on relationship skills and social awareness. Through periodic student surveys and anecdotal feedback from staff, we will collect student data about their experiences with our SEL programs to evaluate their sense of belonging and feeling valued and respected. Our social emotional learning component was so important this year for all of our schools. Thank you to Doreen and Lord Kaplan, who really helped lead that charge, as well as the principals who really took into account how pandemic and everything else affected our students and the importance of the SEL. Things we did this year: we completed transition activities, staff training, staff surveys, student surveys, parent workshops, grade appropriate district programming. The following slides go into a little more detail in regards to each of those areas. I did want to highlight a few of them. For example, in our staff training at the opening of school, training was provided to all district aides on how to facilitate and support appropriate social skills in the classroom, on the playground, and during unstructured learning times, which is where most of the time we would see behaviors occur and where most support was needed. Grade appropriate district programming, updates and revisions to our Thrive curriculum, elementary SEL meeting time. So our first morning meeting time was in many of the schools where the students, before they started their day academically, they had this moment to speak about how they were feeling in order to begin their day, in order for teachers to identify if a student needed a little more attention or something related to that. Curriculum revisions for advisory programs at the middle and high school as well. Our parental workshops, which were very successful this year and which we will continue for next year, some of them being psychological impact of COVID on adolescents, managing threat in an age of anxiety, feeling the difference, mindfulness techniques that the students could utilize and use throughout their day, at home, away from school as well. Imagine provided a 3-part series supporting children coping with loss and trauma, a guide for our parents, supporting your child's mental health, and fostering resilience in your child. Each were very successful, and as I said before, we will continue to offer these parental workshops in the upcoming school year. Our student surveys as well, which you need to hear from the students within the classrooms to see how they're feeling and what they're experiencing. So some of that feedback, students in grades 4 to 12 were surveyed in November and May to assess their sense of belonging, feeling appreciated and respected, and their connection with trusted adults in their building. To address some of the responses regarding not being recognized or having received praise from an adult at school, a 3-hour Nurtured Heart training was provided for all administrators during admin council. And during this time, administrators learned simple strategies and takeaways to share with classroom teachers. And in the upcoming school year 22-23, 3 of our elementary schools will be piloting the Nurtured Heart approach in their buildings in September. In both survey administrations, the majority of the students surveyed just responded positively to all of the questions presented. And as I stated before, everything will be available. I did not want to read through everything, so you can peruse it at your own to see all the great stuff that we did do this year regarding this goal. Our third goal this year is a data goal. We'll improve its ability to utilize data to inform instructional programming and implement strategies that target areas of growth for all students. How we led this charge was through committee work. Teachers will develop data protocols that support the implementation of a new data software system, iReady, to identify learning needs and provide targeted instruction to improve academic achievement. Our committees will simultaneously explore alternative platforms to determine if additional systems are needed to enhance instruction and curricula. How we accomplished this year, we established a district committee, data committee, completed the data inventory, completed data surveys, a district iReady training. We are exploring other data systems, established data protocols, analyze data to provide targeted instruction. Again, all of this information leading to better academics in the classroom, helping our teachers understand the students that's sitting in front of them and meeting the needs of the students. Back to Scott.
All right, and our fourth goal this year, as you see, is related to diversity, inclusivity, equity, and belonging. This is something we began to discuss heavily last year, but we really were able to define our vision in this area. And certainly even with the addition of Ms. Marr's role and taking on this responsibility, we're really positioned well to continue a lot of growth in this area in the coming years. The outcome for this year was to provide staff and students with some anti-bias and inclusivity training, in addition to complete an equity audit. So when you take a look at where we are in the process or what we've done this year, we did do this again with a district-wide committee that was able to discuss, and subcommittees was able to discuss what does anti-bias look like. It was really important for us in this goal to start at the beginning, the very basic beginning. And if you recall, in the beginning of the school year, we shared a communication primer with you that Ms. Marr had worked with the committee and the cabinet members to really establish the definitions, the communication, the language around this work, which is positioned us now to take a look at more language and policy, professional development, where we did give all of our teachers anti-bias training, and instructional staff from K to 12 receive that. And we are right now in the midst of an equity audit, which we're working with Hanover, as you know, a research company on that, and those results are pending. We do expect to receive them later this summer, and much of that information is going to guide our next year's work. We're going to use that to take a look at more access potentially to gifted and talented AP programs or whatever else we need to do. Not on this list, we also have done a lot of work in the hiring process through Mr. Gardella's office in HR. Him and I have spoken at great length. We've joined coalitions for job searches that are looking for more diverse candidates as well. So we're going to continue to pursue that avenue. So there's a lot more to do in this area, but we're really pleased with the foundation we built this year and getting this just out in the school community to understanding that we're committed to this work and what it's going to do to benefit our students and our community. And that concludes our presentation. Any questions from the board? Thank you. And once again, thank you to everybody who works tirelessly throughout the year to accomplish our goals.
I will jump right in. And I think Laura and Allison just headed out of the room. And I think, well, maybe Allison went to go study the metrics a little more deeply because she seems to love that stuff. And I will tell you, having sat in meetings with her, with my children, she actually does speak that quickly all the time. And it's a challenge to kind of keep up with her in terms of taking notes. And this is important to know, that when a student walks in her office, that student's thoughts about what they wish to achieve when they leave Summit and move on, their thoughts are the most important thing in the room. It's not Allison's ideas about what students should be doing or where they should be going. And I think that came across in her presentation. So our students really drive what they wish to do, and she is very supportive and assists in the process wonderfully. And so I wanted to take a moment just to thank her and the leadership of Laura for the work that they're doing for our seniors and our graduates. And so thank you for that. Also, I would try to give updates on the schools. There's really not much happening in the schools. And so I'll jump into 2 board updates with my comments. First, the Board of School Estimate met on July 7th and unanimously approved the school district's proposed bond issuance to upgrade numerous buildings and fields and to enhance the academic programming of our middle and high schools. The next step for this proposal is a reading and a vote by City Council, which is scheduled to occur in the fall. And in preparation for the coming school year, our board will meet with Superintendent Huff and his cabinet on August 24th to review, discuss, and agree upon the district goals for the coming school year. This is an annual meeting between the board, the superintendent, and the cabinet that occurs each summer. The results of the meeting with respect to district goals will be presented in a general board meeting later this year. And I would expect, and I think we all would expect that the goals that were just discussed this evening will continue to be moved forward, as they're all critical and important and valuable to all of our students at all levels. So that will certainly be a part of the conversation during the retreat meeting. Beyond those items, I'll offer a congratulations, and this just came up, I think, earlier this week, to the business office team for being awarded a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021. That is an award that's granted from the Association of School Business Officials International. And so congratulations to the office. And I know that we had the transition, and Lou was, I suppose, the leader for 2021, but we certainly, Mr. Jess, look forward to a continuation of the great work that is being done in that office under your leadership. And so thank you for that, and congratulations to the team for the award. Also, would like to offer a thank you to the administrators, educators, facilities, and maintenance team who are working diligently to prepare for the coming school year. That work that occurs in July and August, I will acknowledge, is something that I underappreciated prior to joining the board. And so on behalf of our board, and there is a ton of work that's taking place right now all over the district, I just want to offer a thank you for what is being accomplished for the September return of our students. So thank you. And with those updates, I will pass along Superintendent Huff to you for your comments.
Thank you, President Colon. I'm going to start, as you know, we like to celebrate and welcome new staff to the district through the board approval process, and we invite them to appear and be celebrated here tonight. We have a relatively light new hiring staff this month, but we do have a significant position that we're approving tonight, and that's Ms. Natalie Farias, our new Jefferson Elementary principal. Ms. Farias' previous experience includes 8 years as an assistant principal in the East Windsor Regional School District. Prior to her administrative experience, she was an elementary school teacher for the Newark Public School Systems for 6 years. Natalie exudes wonderful qualities that will truly complement and benefit the Jefferson school community. She's a driven, collaborative, and inclusive educational leader who is adamant about creating a positive school climate, culture, and fostering high-quality instruction. She definitely promotes parental community involvement and has proven to enhance student achievement. We're excited for Natalie to join our community, and we look forward to her contributions. So welcome, Natalie.
Welcome. Okay. I want to move right to an approval, or?
Well, yes, but before we do that, Mr. President, coming up a little bit later in the agenda are additions and revisions to the agenda. However, there are two which go under this report of new hires, and that is to approve Ms. Rebecca Penza as a special education elementary teacher at Brayton Elementary School, who will be replacing Carrie Weinglass, and to approve Chelsea Samau, who is being an elementary teacher at Brayton Elementary School, who is replacing Lauren Fulmer. And that's contained in the addendum this evening.
Okay. So, do I have a motion to approve 6A, including the addendum as noted by Mr. Jess?
So moved.
Is there any discussion? On the roll, Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Porak?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Cohn?
Yes.
Vice President Cho?
Yes.
President Colon?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. And we've done 2-minute breaks, but do we want to keep rolling here?
Keep moving right along.
I think we can keep moving.
I'll just continue with my report.
Yeah, go for it. Let's do it.
Relatively light report this month, but our Flash program, which is our summer camp program, has wrapped up this past week. Students enjoyed another summer of classes like woodworking, art, orchestra, sports camps, and the like. Thank you to all the staff members who put a lot of time and effort in creating these programs and facilitating them and overseeing them. It's very well participated in by our school community. Our summer educator training for this year is scheduled for the week of August 15th. It's our annual training for new staff. We're going to welcome them into the Summit community, do some team building, a plethora of professional development and workshops as we always do. The Summit Education Foundation gives a presentation, as well as members of the Free Public Library. We'll have a community lunch with some leaders in the community. It's always a good end-of-the-week activity, and our teachers really benefit. Most of our new staff will attend and get something out of our educator program. As Mr. Colon mentioned, we have a lot of summer projects in the works right now. As you walk the schools, you can see that, so we're diligently preparing for next year, and our STEAM labs are just about complete. The first day of school is Tuesday, September 6th for students. And that concludes my report.
Wonderful. Okay, we will jump. Actually, let's not jump. Let's flow. Item 6B, hit the reports of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Porak? Ms. Miller? Ms. Justice? Ms. Cohn?
Yes.
Vice President Cho?
Yes.
President Cologne?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. So I'll ask, before we jump into committee reports, do we want to review changes to the agenda now or as they come through the agenda? Mr. Jess, I'll defer to you on that.
Well, I can read them all now. There are several additions and a couple of corrections, so I can read them now, or, you know.
What do you want to do?
I'll
as
read
we-
them, well, I'll do them, how if I do them now? And then everybody, and if anybody has any questions, then we can raise it during that time.
Let's do it now.
All right. So, on the addendum, the following additions are being made to the agenda this evening. Under Finance, item Q, approval of the 2022-23 school year lunch price list. Item R, approval of a tuition contract with the ECLC of New Jersey. And item S, approval of another tuition contract with the ECLC of New Jersey. Under Personnel, item A3, adding the approval of Genevieve Locante as an elementary teacher. Under item E, approval accept the resignation of Karen Craig and Elizabeth Sato. Item W, approval to appoint substitute teachers. Item X, approval to appoint Lexi Calvert as a junior varsity cheer coach. Item Y, approval to appoint Ashley McMahon as a summer academy teacher. And approval, item Z, of maternity leave, family leave replacement for the following teacher. As correct revisions to the agenda this evening, under curriculum, item A, the correct cost should be $429,591.83. There's a transposition error there.
You just saved us some money.
I did. You like that? I see. I thought so. Under personnel, item O should include the wording for the 2022-2023 school year. And on item T, the correct hourly rate is $41.41. So I saved you some more money there too. So we're just rolling along. And I'd ask the board to consider approving those additions and revisions this evening.
Okay. Keep saving us money with the addendums, and we'll keep approving them. All right. Committee reports. Let's start with Ed Committee. Alita.
Thank you. The Education Committee met on July 7th. We met for 55 minutes, and committee members in attendance were from the administration, Scott Huff and Joseph Pedera, and from the board, myself, Michael Colon, and Joe Porak. Our first agenda item was student outcomes. We all saw the presentation today by Laura Kaplan and Allison Grill. And the only other point of discussion was whether or not this particular presentation, as has been discussed historically, should be given in September rather than July. That is an ongoing discussion. We will have more talks about that, and we will let you all know after our September meeting. Laura Kaplan also referenced the One Moment Free Decisions program, which is a simulated impaired and distracted driving program that was in effect before COVID. We are asking the question to the board now whether this program should come back into effect in spring of 2023. There are questions about whether or not our students would be ready for this type of programming because of the simulation being a 2-day simulation that is very emotionally heavy in many ways. So the board discussed it, and what we decided was we wanted to find out what other area school districts were doing and also to get a little more feedback from members of the administrative team as to whether or not this is the right timing. As you all saw in the presentation from Superintendent Huff and Dr. Cordero about our goals, we are happy with the progress that is made to date, and you all had that presentation today. In terms of the starting of the school year, we are planning to open up as normal. We will continue to evaluate and make the best decision for Summit schools, and if a change is needed, we will let you know of that change. There was a point of discussion about revising the calendar for 2022 to 2023. 2 years ago, the board approved 2 calendar years, but due to some conflicts in timing, the middle school graduation is actually on the Juneteenth holiday, so a new date will be chosen for that event. And on June 6th, there is a primary election day that will take place that will result in the closing of all of our schools. We were given the draft matrix, and the matrix will be updated as needed at future meetings. And then we also received an update from Dr. Cordero on the Summer Academy, which is for language arts and math support. There are 132 students that are participating this year. There was more grant funding this year that allowed the district to widen the summer offerings, and the iReady program was used again this summer. We plan to have pre-test and post-test data that will be reviewed at the September meeting. There are no recommendations from the committee. Our next meeting will be September 1st. And any members of the committee have anything that they want to add, anything that I missed?
I would just add that I think Laura Kaplan might strangle us if we don't get back to her until September for the 1 moment, 3 decisions. So I think that's true. So, so we will we'll certainly speak as needed over the summer based on the feedback that you had referenced, right, coming back from the administration on that.
We're going to have a more lengthy discussion tomorrow in cabinet meeting about that and make a decision very soon because the planning that goes into the event is extensive.
Yep.
So we do hope to make a decision by the end of this month.
Yep, yep.
Any other board members?
I'm just, so June 6th, because there is schools will be used for voting, that's closed. That maybe not so obviously, that didn't result in another day that we need to be open.
It will.
It will.
It will. It'll push the
Chosen
calendar.
or not chosen yet?
Not chosen yet.
Not chosen yet?
Likely just continue to extend into the school year.
Okay.
And which would be advantageous because that would automatically push the middle school
Middle school
graduation
graduation.
Juneteenth date back a day. So that's what our thoughts are now.
Thank you.
Okay. Walida, thank you. Moving into, this is going to be really easy for you, Jan. Ops.
The Operation Committee did not meet this past month. We will next meet in August. So no minutes to report.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. Policy.
Policy Committee met Wednesday, July 6th. We had a short meeting of 17 minutes. In attendance was Superintendent Huff, Rob Gardella, Kathleen Murphy, Walida Justice, and myself. The committee discussed several policy topics, beginning with policy 2415.04 and policies 2415.50 through 58. That's the district-wide parent and family engagement, which was revised, and Title I school parent and family engagement, which are new. The first policy has been rewritten, and the name of the policy has been changed. It was formerly Title I parental involvement, to include updated language, and then the policies 2415.50 through 58 are new, with one school policy for each school in the district. These individual policies include the United States Department of Education policy requirements that are monitored by the New Jersey Department of Education, and these policies are mandated. In addition, we discussed policy 5512, which is harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy. This policy has been revised to align with updates to the law. The law now requires that principals report preliminary determinations to the superintendent, and the superintendent must annually report this to the board. The number of times that a preliminary determination was made by a school principal that an incident or complaint was outside the scope of HIB. In addition, the revisions include additional suggestions for remedial action and requirements for reporting to law enforcement in keeping with the district's uniform state memorandum of agreement between education and law enforcement officials, requirements for written record keeping, and requirements to have a post on the district homepage of the guidance for parents on the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, and an online numbered form where parents can confidentially report an incident. This policy is mandatory. And then last, we discussed policy 6620, petty cash. This policy has been revised to reduce the number of petty cash accounts in the district from 17 to 2. Those 2 accounts will be the business office and special services, and both will be funded at $100 with a maximum single expenditure of $50. So the committee recommends first readings of those revised policies that I just put out, policies 2415.04, 2415.50 through 58, policy 5512, and policy 6620, and then second readings of all the policies that are in the agenda, and our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 7th at 3:30. Are there any questions?
No. Thank you. Moving to, what do we have? Communications, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you. We were also on summer hours. We met on July 7th for just 20 minutes. With me were Jan Cho, Kelly Stanton, Scott Huff, Noreen Callender, and Doug Orr. We had 3 brief discussions. The first was to review the profile of our new principal and to learn more about her. We continue to love those new profiles and how they quickly communicate who our newest administrators are. We also had a brief discussion on a mobile phone app, and this is just an FYI to the board. There's a great deal of work that needs to be done, but an app based on feedback from our community, a mobile app is in the works. That app will connect to our website and consolidate and prioritize district website information, and I think it's going to be a great addition for parents who are on the go, yet need our information from us. So there'll be more information on that coming. Finally, we had a brief conversation on our anticipated Board of School estimate vote. We went through our website to ensure that if families and the public had questions, that questions were being answered. We made a few tweaks and some suggestions, that BOSE vote has already taken place. I would anticipate that our next meeting will continue to discuss how we can ensure our public understands what is going on with potential future votes, and then with what we assume will be a very robust couple of years of facilities and program upgrades. We have no recommendations at this time. We will next meet on August 30th. I don't think I missed anything, but I'll ask Kelly, John, anything? Questions? That's it for us.
Okay. The negotiations committee did not meet in the previous month, and so nothing to report there. Liaisons. Any liaising taking place among board members in the summer? Some liaising maybe at the shore, but not with groups. Okay. All right. Then let's move right into public comment. Mr. Jess, do you want to jump in and read the ground rules?
Yes, I will, Mr. President. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak shall first seek recognition by the presiding officer. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address in a clear, audible tone for the record. All comments should be directed to the board president and not an individual member of the board. Unless additional time is granted by the board president, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. In addition, please note that this portion of the meeting is for public comment and not meant to be a back and forth. Board members and administration will not respond to questions or comments at this time. However, information will be provided as soon as possible.
Okay. Any public comment for items that are on the agenda?
Good evening, Paola Costa, 5 Nassau Drive. Well, surprisingly, I did miss some information from the report, the college's report. I like to see some of the compositions for some of the statistics, and I think previous years we have seen, for example, for the 2 years college applications and acceptances, we knew the composition of different groups, and it was very clear that it was very recognizable that where certain groups were in this percentage of students. And it doesn't mean that it's something bad, but I think you're doing a lot of work trying to shift certain things, having implicit bias, having bilingual counselors, and I would like to see the impact, because I know that it takes time, but there should be a metric that if all of the things that we're doing is working, it should have an impact on the numbers, it should have an impact on the compositions, and I did miss those statistics, although it was a lot of information, I know, but I was expecting them and I did miss them, so probably I could contact Mrs. Grill later, but I would like to see that what we're doing has an impact with the numbers here. And I don't know, I have another question about the goals, so I don't know if it's in the agenda. It's mainly memory. I think before we did the focus areas, but I remember that it was mentioned that we will not do focus areas again. Could I be reminded what will be the new process for shifting the goals?
I'll speak to it, given that it is a topic that we intended to have transparency on in this meeting. So the process is for us to have annual goals, which will be presented by the superintendent and approved by the board. And so I believe the focus area process was every 3 years. And so the emphasis on a going forward basis will be on annual goals. And I think what the intent is that it's not going to be 3 new goals or 4 new goals or 5 new goals every year. And so there is going to be a focus area element in the goals going forward, because they will be longer term initiatives. And so, you know, it's hard to speak to without having the current proposal of the coming year's goals, but there will be some consistency. There's the expectation that there will be consistency in the goals going forward.
Yeah, I think the goals were established more or less similarly. The focus areas were, for me, one way for the community to give some input of what we were expecting to see. So if there is a new way of doing it, when will the parents will have a say in what they are expecting or they want to see happen? Is there a new process? I know we had a different survey, so I don't know if there will be a survey in general, because I know it's a lot of work too, but I think it was very valuable, at least as a parent, to have a say in what we wanted the district to focus on or not.
I understand the point. Any other comments, items on the agenda? Okay. Items not on the agenda. Okay. I think we can, have a motion to close. Do I have a motion to close?
And we have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Okay. Now, moving on. Board minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as of June 23rd, public meeting, as well as the exec session on July 1st? Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Okay. Item 11, curriculum instruction and program. Items on the standard agenda as well as the addendum as presented. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Did we have a second? Or are we going to choose between those two motions? All right. A second.
Second.
There we go.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Porak? Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Vice President Cho?
Yes.
President Cologne?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. All right, finance. Items A through S on the addendum. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Porak?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Vice President Cho?
Yes.
President Cologne?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 13, school board operation. I don't think we didn't have any addendum items for that one, did we? No. Item A, motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Porak?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Justice? Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Vice President Cho?
Yes.
President Cologne?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Personnel. Okay, personnel, item 14, running all the way through. QRS. No, we had TUV. All right, I want to find Z. There it is, all the way to Z. A through Z, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Porak?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Vice President Cho?
Yes.
President Cologne?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, policies and regs. Do we have a motion to approve the items for the first reading as well as items for the second reading?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Stanton?
Yes.
Dr. Porak?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Justice? Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Vice President Cho?
Yes.
President Cologne?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we do have a closed session, and so we need a motion.
Got to read the resolution, please. Summer Board of Education may hold an executive session to discuss appropriate matters. Closed session minutes will be reviewed periodically to determine the appropriateness of their release. There will not be action taken as a result of this session, and the board will not return. Whereas pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12B, the Board of Education may exclude the public from that portion of a meeting wherein the board discusses any of the matters set forth at NJSA 10:4-12B 1 through 9. Now therefore be it resolved that in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act, the Board of Education shall conduct a closed session pursuant to the provisions of NJSA 10:4-12B for the purpose of discussing the following matters: personnel. Action will not be taken again, and the board will not return. So may we have a motion for the board to go into personnel prior to adjournment, please?
Moved.
May I have a second? Thank you. Ms. Stanton? Dr. Porak? Yes. Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Justice? Yes. Ms. Cohen?
Yes.
Vice President Cho?
Yes.
President Cologne?
Yes.
Now may we have a motion to adjourn?
So,
Thank you. May I have a second?
second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Stanton? Yes. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Board is adjourned at 8:20.
There you go.